You mentioned it earlier on, like the Magic this year coming into this season. It's a pretty young team. You lost a few vets midway through the back end of last year with the trade deadlines and things like that. You've got guys, such as RJ Hampton, who did play in the NBL, Suggs, who was a top 10 pick this year for you guys.
Number five, yep.
Yeah. So top 5 pick, and then also you got guys, and he was a one and done in college. You got guys like a Koki, who was a 2-year guy in college, and then obviously guys that have done 3 and 4 years. For some of the younger coaches that maybe want to get some insights, and even senior coaches want to get some insights into what are some of the considerations you have for these guys when they lift, it doesn't have to be they don't hinge or anything like that, but just some general considerations for these athletes, because again, they're not your normal dudes. They are genetic freaks. They've got tall, they're tall dudes, long femurs, sometimes little torsos. You think like KD's your typical basketballer dude. What are some things that you really maybe edge towards, and then some things that you definitely maybe steer clear from?
Yeah, the first question that we'll always ask ourselves and them is like, okay, what school did you go to? You'll aim to reach out to the strength staff at that college or wherever they were, if they were in a pro team overseas, like RJ was, and get a sense on their training background. And then obviously speaking to the player, every college has their own system and their own structure, and I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about Australian sport is how you can identify kids from such a young age and get them into your system from 10 to 13, sort of up. Younger in the UK, you've got 6-year-olds in academies, in different soccer clubs. So the aims for the college may not necessarily fall in line with the aims of your department or your organisation. So finding the gaps there from an organisational standpoint is goal number one, and working out where those deficits are and making sure that change of stimulus or perhaps change of philosophy doesn't undo like how good that athlete is in the first place. And then secondly, it's your nature to want to get them in the weight room, to want to coach them, to want to make them a better athlete. Take a step back and realize that they're here because they're already great athletes in the first place. They're going to have a lot thrown at them, and it's always that question of what's the smallest thing I can do to achieve the biggest response, and whether that is body composition, whether it is just absolute strength, whether it is they need to be more on the speed side of things or more on the strength speed side of things, depending on how you're assessing them. It's usually just setting one goal and making sure that athlete knows that when they come into the weight room for the first couple of months, they're really only working towards one or maybe two things, and they have a clear understanding of what that is. And just to not overload them. Like it's a lot of cognitive load as well. You look at those kids and they're 19, 20 years of age. And if you think back to what we were doing at that age, and how mature you were as a man, these guys are still working out who they are as individuals, let alone who they are as basketballers, and that's a big part of that process too. So you have to take the person into account 100%. And again, that's the luxury of working on a 1-to-1, almost a 1-to-1 ratio, is you have the ability to get down in the nitty gritty with them and do that. And that's one of the things I love about my job. And you're really able to take an individualized approach to absolutely every single thing that you do. So there's really no blanket structure. There may be a blanket framework and goals that you want those rookies to sort of start to move towards from an organizational standpoint. But again, how you do that, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and that's always up to how you work within that player, how you work with that player.